before we get there, it is important to recognize that in addition to the objective barriers to building the kind of Europe, the kind of Balkans, the kind of world I hope will be built, there are the attitudinal problems. If you want to build a world of shared opportunity, you can't have too much inequality. If you want to build a world of shared responsibility, you can't have too much instability. But in order to get there, people have to have a sense of identity that allows them to be proud of who they are, to fight for what they think their people are entitled to, but to do it in the context of a world where what we have in common is more important than our differences. That, after all, is still the problem in Bosnia, isn't it? So the trick everywhere is, how do you give people a sense of ownership of their common destiny, of their differences, and still think about what we have in common? The truth is, the only way to win the future is to share it. That's why the networks are important. When I was a young man, I was always highly competitive, as you may have noticed. So I was interested in game theory. An election, for example, and a soccer match, a football match, are example of zero-sum games. A zero-sum game is one in which, in order for someone to win, someone else has to lose. Which is why if a football match ends in a tie, you have the kickoffs. And Americans are fanatic about their zero-sum games. In American basketball and American football, we keep playing until someone wins. A couple years ago, where I live on the East Coast, two of our greatest basketball teams had to play 6 overtimes till 1:30 in the morning to decide which one would win our championship. And as a result, they were both so tired that they were quickly eliminated in the national tournament 10 days later. But we got a winner. We like that. That's great for sports. The problem is, it doesn't work very well in real life. In real life, networking works. In real life, we have to find non-zero-sum games. In a non-zero-sum game, one party may do better than another, but no one has to lose. In fact, the winners will do even better if there are no losers. That is the networked world. And you can't get that kind of world if people's mentality is zero-sum. If people think more about past grievances than future possibilities. That's what I worry about with the agreement we made at Dayton and how it's playing out in Bosnia today. Because it permits people to stay in office and win elections by constantly reminding people of their grievances. And it permits people to stop others from realizing their aspirations. And that's what I pray that the Bosnians will get by. I just want to say a couple more things about this. This is a huge deal. Most of you are already there. The fact that you had a meeting with this title means that you understand this. But many people don't have the life experiences you do. So in order to imagine the future that you have already embraced, you have to help them get there. And a lot of this is very elemental. When I was president, I formed a very close personal friendship with Nelson Mandela. He's quite aged now, and he's frail, but his mind is still very sharp. And I try to go and see him once a year around his birthday. But one day we were talking about the day he was released from prison. Some of you may remember this. It was a Sunday morning in 1991. And he'd been in prison or house arrest for 27 years. So the day finally came, it was all arranged. And I don't know if you remember watching this on television, but I got my daughter up and took her downstairs. We sat in the kitchen and we turned on the television. I said, Chelsea, this is one of the most important things you will ever see. Nelson Mandela is going free today. So we turned the television on, and by then he was already sort of shuffling because he'd been in a confined space for so long. But if you remember, he walked down a dirt road and he got in a car and they opened a gate that was locked and he drove out. It was a simple thing. So I said to Mandela, I said, look, we've been friends a long time now. I want to ask you an honest question. You are a great man, but you're also a very shrewd man. So it was a shrewd thing to ask your jailers to your inauguration. It was even shrewder to put the leaders of the parties who put you in jail in your government. He knew he needed them, and South Africa needed them. I said, but now just tell me the truth. Chelsea and I watched you walk to freedom. When you were taking that last walk as a prisoner, didn't you hate them all over again? And he looked at me, he was wonderful. He said, well, of course I did. He said, in that last 100 yards I walked, I felt all the hatred again. After all, I'd been abused physically and mentally. It ruined my marriage. I didn't get to see my children grow up. My country lost all those years of development. Yes, I was angry. He said, to tell you the truth, I was also afraid. Because I hadn't been free in a long time. I didn't know if I could organize my life. But he said, right before I got in the car, I realized something. I realized that if I hated those people when I drove through that gate, I would still be their prisoner. He said, I wanted to be free, and so I let it go. There are still too many people in this part of the world who have not made the decision to be free. Everybody's got something to resent. If you live long enough, somebody will do something terrible to you. And every day you spend resenting it is another day you let them take away from your life. Mandela got that. It's the one thing more than anything else that made him one of the great figures of our age. We have to do that.